You're listening to the Bear in Mind podcast, episode number 8.
A podcast about love, color, and identity, and where driving yourself crazy is totally sane and curable. Now your host, T. Vias.
Today's episode is about what you need before you want to change something about yourself, so a behavior or a habit. And I'm going to focus on your scripts in your relationships. It can be any relationship. And it's about really the patterns you want to change. So that's actually what I mean by the script, and that you actually want to change it. So actually the before you change your script is that it's a habit or it's a behavior that you genuinely want to change, not that somebody else in the relationship is asking you to change the specific behavior. Even if they're asking you, and it's still something you want to change, then that's great. So some of these patterns that we have in our lives are very difficult to see when we're living day to day. And what I mean by a script is, I'll use the analogy of the script in a movie, and an actor gets a script and then they deliver their lines in the movie, and the script is written, and although there is some kind of a match between what the actor says and what's written, often the actor isn't going to read exactly word for word from the script to what we see in the actual film. So finding out kind of that background script in our head is a very difficult thing to do when we have no idea what that script is, because we have so many influences from society, our friends, and our family. So before you change your script is in essence about finding out that written script that's in the background that you might not even be aware of. And you're only going to need two things. One is pause, and this is referred to as mindfulness, calm, space, meditation. And for me, traditional meditation didn't work. And oftentimes when you see words like create pause or create space, I didn't know what that meant. And was a challenging thing for me to even find or create in my life. So I'm going to give you a tool in which that helped me find that space. And the second thing you need is pen and paper. So part number one, creating the space. You see memes or memes on social media, and it says things like that, like create space, be more mindful, be more conscious. And in order to figure out what that means to you, I'll share with you the tools that I used, and I still continue to use them today, because I didn't even know what those words meant to me. So I started small, because although I wanted to make changes and I still want to make changes, I find that when I do start small, I actually often get bigger insights from just starting small, as opposed to trying to make a huge change in my behavior. And then that insight that I get propels me into more of the change that I want to see in myself. So to start, I'm going to ask you to pick one person that sort of irritates you, a coworker, a friend. I mean, they're a friend, but maybe they irritate you from time to time. And I would pick someone that slightly irritates you, not someone that you really, really dislike. And I want you to think about some of the questions they ask you, the habitual questions that you find irritating. So, for example, I used to have a roommate, and every morning he would ask me, "How did you sleep?" It was every single morning, and I'm not a morning person, so it was a small irritation. I love my roommate, but every morning I didn't want to hear this question. And another example is I had a coworker, and every Monday morning she would ask me, "How's your weekend?" without fail, every single Monday morning. So to start, just pick one person and think about a question that they ask you that you are slightly irritated by. And when you know it's going to come, it'll be easier to create that pause. And since it's a habitual question you get from the same person, you can prepare yourself to answer that question. And I don't mean changing how you respond to the question or doing anything different, but when they ask you that question, you take 1 second or 2 seconds before you answer instead of answering immediately. Even if it's a question like, how are you? You would pause and then answer the question and answer it however you want to answer it. Now, if this is a bit of a challenge, and for me, with some people, it was a bit of a challenge to create that pause in real time in a face-to-face or on a call, I used social media to help me create this pause. And a positive thing about social media, it actually helped me out. And I had to follow people that I found irritated. So in some social media, you can take them off of your feed. I refollowed them, and sometimes people would post things that I didn't agree with. So I picked one person, and I would pause on their post, and I would read it all the way through. And I wouldn't like it or make a comment. And I would just pause at their post. And I kept doing this. And you keep doing this with the same person. That's why it's better just to pick one person and focus on that person. And I kept pausing and pausing. So every post or every time I would interact with them face to face, I would pause before I answered any question or said anything to them. Now, it's going to be different for everyone how long you need to do this, but you will know when you've created pause. And you'll know it because all of a sudden you'll hear your thoughts in your head. It'll be maybe in real time when you do see that person, or maybe it'll come up later, because that space between someone saying something to you and you responding to it, it gives your head, your brain, some space for what you're thinking. And social media makes it a little easier. You can maybe create that space before you hit the like or before you comment or do anything. You can kind of see what you think about it. And then this is where the pen and paper comes in, is to have just a little notebook next to you. I mean, if you don't want to use pen and paper, you can take notes on your phone and write down what your thoughts are, even if they're questions every time you look at this post, oh, I'm so irritated by her, or keep writing it down and writing it down. And keep doing this. And so like if you have a question, answer that question, why does she post something like this? And then the answer to that question will actually be your thoughts. And you keep doing this and doing this until you see a pattern in your thoughts. And this pattern is actually the running script that you have about the other person. So in an example of, I had an acquaintance who I didn't like any of her posts on social media, and I found I had a really negative running script about her. I was constantly writing down negative things, and I was like, wow, this is this kind of script and perspective I have of this other person. And understanding this pattern that you have running in the back of your mind is actually what will help you change a behavior that you want to change in a relationship. Because if you're not even aware of that script and you then just go and just try to change the behavior right away, you'll still be running with this old script, and you're trying to create a new script in your life without even understanding what script you're actually using. Now, you can use anyone to start with, so it doesn't have to be necessarily the relationship you're trying to change your script in, but using anybody that you find slightly irritating will help reveal some of these background scripts, and then that'll translate over into some of the relationships that you really want to work on. So I'm going to wrap it up here, and those are the only two things that you need to have before you try to change your script. One is to try to create that pause so it can reveal your patterns, and two is a pen and paper. I'll check back with you next week.
Thanks for listening. Listen for a new episode next Tuesday by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Bye for now.